How you going, guys? Dean from the blog for the Blood God here. I've just started building myself a brand new Warhammer board, and I thought what better opportunity to show you guys a bit of a tutorial on how you can make your own. It's going to be the simplest yet one of the best looking boards that you can make, simply because it works on a very simple and basic principle. So all you do is you head up to your local hardware store and you grab 2 sheets of MDF, cut to whatever size board you want. So I'm doing 2 sheets of 3x4 so that it makes a 6x4 table. You could do this in a single sheet, but I find doing the 2 smaller sheets makes it a shitload easier to transport and store. So you could make it as big or as little as you want, completely up to you. And then the only other thing that you need is a shit ton of super glue and a shit ton of cork. So there's a few different ways that you can go about buying cork sheet. You can buy sheets like this one here from the hardware store. Or, what I've done, I found the best way to do it is to buy these trivet pads, which is from a local discount variety book store. So that's just a 3-pack of cork sheets for $2. And that works out really cheap. Hardware stores seem to put a bit of a premium on cork. They make it a bit more expensive. So, glue for $2 from the $2 shop. Trivet pads for $2 from the $2 shop. I think those boards were only like $3 each, $4 each. So you got, yeah, maybe a $20 table all up, and it's going to look fantastic. So that's what you need, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to break these cork sheets up so that they look like chunks of, essentially, of rubble, and then we're going to glue them down in a pattern, or a random pattern, all over the table. So I'm just going to go through and do that now, and I'll be back with you in a second. Alrighty, that's the first stage done. So all I've done is tear up those cork sheets that I showed you earlier, and I've just used this cheap super glue to glue them all down. That cheap super glue works really well. The only way you're going to get that cork off is if you tear it. It's not going to move, so it's really, I highly recommend that glue. And yeah, so all you want to do is you want to chuck sort of a big chunk, a biggish chunk in each corner, and then with the leftovers, just shred them up into small pieces and sort of scatter them around the big chunks. And you'll notice that I've left all down the center of the table bare. And now the reason I've done that is because I'm going to get some city fight terrain and some line of sight blocking terrain and those sorts of things, and actually mount them on cork so that you can move them around modular through that middle section, and they'll still look elevated like the rest of the cork. So the next stage that I'm going to get into is painting, and basically all you do for the painting, actually I'll go grab the stuff that we need first. Alrighty, so for the base coat painting stage, all you're going to need is a bunch of cheap yellow paint, cheap red paint, cheap black paint, all acrylic obviously, and some cheap brushes that you don't care about that you can throw out. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to paint all of the cork black. So it's going to end up with a stone look to it, but we're going to paint it black for the base coat, and then all of the board underneath is going to be painted red, and then splotches of yellow added to it to make sort of swirls and patterns in the red. Now you're going to want to make sure you do this on either indoors or on a ridiculously sunny day, because we're going to do it a really thick coat of this red and yellow to give it a bit of a texture. If we do it nice and thick, you can get it looking gloopy and globby, and that'll give us a really nice texture, but it is going to take freaking ages to dry. So make sure you do it on either a really sunny day or do it indoors where you could leave it for a couple of days to dry. I'm hoping with this sun that I've got out today, it should dry maybe in a couple of hours, we'll see. But yeah, so I'm going to lay down that base coat now, and then I'll get back to you. Alrighty guys, I finally finished base coating all of the stone sections. They've all been base coated black. So now I'm just going to leave her out here to sit and dry, and which might take a little bit. But once that's dry, I'm going to take this red and yellow and fill in all of the leftover wood pieces. And what we're going to do, actually what I would recommend doing, is water down your paints lots when you're doing this, because the cork, being a porous substance, if you just paint black straight over it, you're going to get a flat surface, whereas if you want to keep the texture that you've got in that cork, if you water down your black paint, it sinks into the cork, which not only gives you a really good coverage because you're not going to get any cracks or anything like that show, but it also allows you to keep that texture. And then once this black is dried, we'll be able to dry brush some grey over the top of it, and those textures are really going to pop. And then once we add in the red into the middle there, it's just going to look fantastic. So I'm just going to let that dry, and when it's done, I'm going to throw down some red and dry brush the cork, and then I'll get back to you with the next video. Alrighty guys, finally finished the base coat, or the first stage of the lava or the blood lake. So all I've done is I've painted the whole, actually the first thing I did was dry brush grey over the black of the stone. And basically when I did that, you're just going to go for as splotchy and patchy of a job as you can, because that gives it a real, you know, messy sort of random look. Whereas if you do that, you know, crystal clear perfect paint job on it, I find it looks a little bit too fake. Whereas if you just sort of slap some paint on it, not only is it a fuck ton easier, but yeah, it gives it a bit more of a realistic look. And then I painted the whole bottom of it red, with a nice thick coat of red. And then while that red was still wet, I just threw down some yellow lines, and then splotched the crap out of it with a nice thick brush. And that gives it a sort of like I said before, it gives it that random sort of realistic look. What I was trying to go for, which I'm not sure if it's really working the way I wanted, but I was going for sort of like a waves kind of look coming out from the little islands there. So we'll see what it looks like when I get the top coat on, because the next coat over this is going to tie it all together. It's going to reduce the contrast between the red and the yellow, and it's going to make it more look like a dark red into an orange when I put over this top coat. Which will also give it a real glossy, kick-ass look. But that's going to have to wait for tomorrow, because it looks like the sun's roughly about to go down. So I'm just going to leave this out here to dry for a little bit more, bring her inside, and we'll finish her off tomorrow. So yeah, I'll get back to you tomorrow when I've finished, when this is dried and I've put the top coat on. Alrighty, I've brought the table in overnight to dry. Because obviously it's dark outside and I didn't want to leave it outside to the weather. It's still got quite a bit of drying to do, but I thought while it's in here drying, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to do some highlighting on it and some other details. So what I've done around the black on the grey on the stone, I've just done some really, really rough edge highlighting with where are we? Administratum grey. So I've just done that around the edges of all of the stone, which gives it a really nice contrast with the darker red around the edges there. And then I've also, because the theme of this board is it's a corn demon world, is throughout the lava I've put just little corn symbols just throughout the whole thing. And when I go over that with the top coat, they'll be barely visible, sorry. But, you know, when you pay that a little bit extra close attention to the board, you'll see, oh shit, there's fucking corn symbols in the lava and shit, that looks sick. Well, I'm hoping that's the response I get. But yeah, so, just going to leave this guy to dry overnight, and then tomorrow I will show you guys the next stage, which will really bring it all together and make it look sick. Alrighty guys, so I've finally finished putting down the top coat, which as you can see, I'm not sure if it's going to show up too well in video, but it's a nice glossy, dark, deep red. So basically all you do to achieve that is severely water down some red paint and splash it over the top. And that'll darken the whole lot. It'll also bring together your yellows and your reds to make it a bit more of an orange and a much more subtle blend. And then also, if you want to get a bit more involved in it, you can get some black paint, water that down, and just really lightly mix that in with it while it's all still wet to give it a bit more of a chunky, gory, sort of deep, dark red look to it. And then once you've done that, it'll still look pretty mediocre and it'll look pretty average. But then all you need to do is grab yourself like 3 or 4 cans of clear varnish, which I picked up for $3 from the local $2 shop. And yeah, just go absolutely nuts and spray them all over the blood. And it gives a really nice glossy, it gives it a sort of a 3D kind of look, texture as well. So yeah, and makes it end up look really, really well. So yeah, that's all there is to painting it. And as you can see there, you can see the glossiness of it there. Almost goes white in the freaking sunlight. But yeah, in a gaming room, that'll look sick. Alrighty, so the table is now 100% finished, built, painted, gloss varnish over the top, and it's now ready for games. It's finally dried. It took like 4 or 5 hours for the gloss varnish to dry. But it's now 100% finished, so you can see the way the armies look on top of it. They stand out nicely. I mean, even my army's a red army with red bases on a red table, but you can still clearly see them and it's not lost. And then I've got my mates, Astra Militarum, over on the side here. And I've also got, you'll notice that I've done matching bases, just to keep the theme consistent. And all you need to do if you want to make matching bases for your army is just follow the exact same steps that we went through to build the table on the bases. So you break up some cork, glue it onto your base, glue the model on top of the cork. That's how you build it. And then you just simply paint the cork piece black and dry brush it grey, and then if you want to, give it a second layer of highlighting to make it a bit more bright. And then for the actual base itself, for the part of the base, you just paint it red, do some yellow highlights on it, give it a bit of a splotchy sort of effect, like you can see on the side of the blood crusher here. It's sort of splotchy. You don't want it to look too flat and dull. And then yeah, once you've done the splotchiness on it, you let it dry, go over it with some heavily watered down red, which sort of ties all your colours together, and then chuck a gloss varnish over the top. Just make sure you don't get the gloss varnish on the cork, because otherwise you're going to have glossy rocks, which will just look silly. So that's all there is to it. And I also thought I might take this opportunity to just showcase my army a little bit, because I'm pretty proud of it. But, you know, can you blame me? And yeah, so that's all there is to it. If you guys have any comments, questions, or anything like that, chuck them in the comments below and I will endeavour to get back to everybody. And make sure you check out my Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/blog for the Blood God. And because I do, every single time I do one of these sorts of videos, I do live updates and stuff like that for my followers, so you can sort of get involved and get that little bit of insider information as well. So make sure you check that out, and as always, thank you for watching. Alrighty guys, before I pack this video up, I just wanted to show you what this table can look like with a little bit of terrain on it. Really simple. I've just picked up one of the Imperial strong points, which is a bastion and two bastions, 2 Aegis defense lines, and just simply mounted them on some cork. And now we've got a nice spread of terrain across the table. And what I've done is I've made it so that all of these pieces of terrain aren't actually stuck to the board, so you can remove them and put them wherever you want, have as little or as much terrain as you want, and no matter where you put them, they're going to look fine because they're mounted on that cork base. So that's the theory behind them. I also picked up this thing here, which is I picked that up from aquarium supplies joint, which I just thought that makes a nice big centerpiece sort of thing for the table. But yeah, so that's all you need to do if you want to get some terrain on there and make it still look themed and cool. Is just put them on the, if you've got any leftover cork, you just use that to make a little base for them. And the other thing that I've done is I've made these 6 objective markers, which all I've done is took a piece of cork, mounted it on a normal Games Workshop base, because that's roughly the size you want for your objective marker, and then I've just carved the numbers into the top of each piece of cork, and they're your custom objective markers. So yeah, that's all matching now. But yeah, so really it only took me 2 days to buy the materials, to build it, and to paint it. And realistically, the only time consuming part is letting the paint dry. Other than that, it's a very simple table to just quickly whip together. and it's very simple to do. You don't require any skills or any special tools or any crap like that. Minimal creativity required, you know, you just fucking slap some paint on a board and you're done. And yeah, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and with that I'm going to leave you to it. Thanks for watching.